Welcome to our Lunchtime Live program on WJEJ, a monthly workout in partnership with Washington County Public Schools. Our show today is sponsored by the Columbia Bank. This is Will Kaufman from the Public Information Office, joined by Rob Rollins, Director of Facilities Planning and Development, and from the department also, Chad Criswell is here, Senior Project Manager and Planning Supervisor, and Brad Otto, a Project Manager in the Office of Facilities Planning and Development. Gentlemen, welcome.
Hello.
Howdy. Thank you.
I'm going right to the top. Rob, give us a good broad view of what's happening at the department. What are you working on right now?
Well, a lot of things. We have two very large projects in design and getting ready to be bid later on this year. That would be the Sharpsburg Elementary School project and the Urban Improvement Project, the addition to the Barbara Ingram School downtown. In addition to that, we have many systemic renovation projects, this replacement of roofs and HVAC systems, electrical systems, things like that. Those projects will move forward this summer. And also we have ongoing work with our planner, Chad, with enrollments and things like that. So,
What the Urban Improvement Project, lots of headlines, it's gotten a lot of focus. There are a lot of different players in that mix. What's our role? I mean, beyond the Barbara Ingram angle to it, do we do anything with the rest of the project? How does it all fit together?
right. So downtown, there's three major partners. There's the Board of Education, the Maryland Theater, and the University System of Maryland Hagerstown campus. So each one of those entities has a project ongoing. Ours would be to add a 5-story building right next to BISFA, which will act as a classroom component to that school. And it'll also bring opportunities for us to maybe do other internships downtown that maybe aren't necessarily arts related. So it's an expansion of the downtown program and footprint for the school system. The Maryland Theater is doing their own addition to the front of the theater to put back what was there years ago before it burned down, a new lobby and improvements to the back of the house and things like that. There'll also be a connection between the Maryland Theater and the new Board of Education building so that students can flow from between both buildings efficiently and safely in the future. When our students often use the stage and at the Maryland Theater for rehearsals and things like that. And there's also a room being built in the Maryland Theater addition that mimics the size of the stage so we can use that for training our students in the dramatic arts mainly. And then the University System of Maryland is building is in conjunction with Hager 5, is going to occupy a building on West Washington Street across from where the University System of Maryland is right now. And that's going to bring opportunities for the university system.
Is it a project that all the components have to move forward together, or can we do what we're going to do? And for instance, I mean, if we're ahead or behind, we can continue at our pace, and then if we're ahead, we can wait on the other components. Is any of it interlocked, so to speak, where something depends on something else, depends on something else?
I think all three projects can proceed at their own pace. I think right now, the way it looks, the university, our building and the Maryland Theater will probably progress at nearly the same time if everything goes as planned. And that's fine. But if one or other project was delayed, it wouldn't affect the construction either way.
Right. What's the time frame? If we isolated our piece of it, in an ideal world, what's the time frame?
So we're finishing up the design of the 5th floor of that building to include science labs, our Washington County Public Schools building. It hopefully will go to bid in April for a May award and start of construction in June. And we hope to be able to occupy sometime in early 2020, like the January, February, March, first 3 months of the year.
For those folks who don't have the history of this, even over the past 6-9 months, our part of this has taken on a bit of a different form over time, a different sort of configurations of the project. You want to just like step back a bit and talk about where it was and where it's come to.
Well, at one point we were going to build a 4-story building and have a connection to the university system building. But the cost of that connection, a secure bridge, was deemed more than what the conglomeration of projects could bear. So we stepped back and decided to add a fifth floor to our building and include the science labs in our design.
All right, if you're just joining us, Rob Rollins is here as Director of Facilities Planning and Development, Chad Criswell is Senior Project Manager and Planning Supervisor, and Brad Otto, Project Manager in our Office of Facilities Planning and Development. Our show is sponsored by the Columbia Bank, Hagerstown Trust Division. Brad, what are you working on?
Right now, as Rob mentioned, Sharpsburg Elementary School replacement school is in design. Right now I'm in the midst of working with the architect and the construction manager. We are approximately at 60% of the bid documents, meaning the architect is somewhere in between, conceptual design and putting the project out to bid. We're closer to the bid stage than we are to the initial design stage. So we're looking at a lot of decisions on how that school is going to be, some of the details now. Now that we know what the school's going to look like, we're looking into some of the finite details of the new building. Other than that, I'm working with Chad to get this summer's plan with the systemic projects that Rob mentioned, making sure we're out to bid on a lot of those. We've got bids back on some of them, so just making sure that all our T's are crossed and I's are dotted, that we can get everybody contracted and on schedule to get the schools slated for improvements this summer all done.
At Sharpsburg, there had been some initial designs. Then there were some changes, and a story unfolded as to how all of that took place. Talk about the process of taking feedback, of the ebb and flow of design changes as those initial stages play out.
Sure. So initially, we asked the architect for a schematic design, and we give them some input. There's an educational specification process that goes along with that, and we allow them to use a little bit of their creative skills to give us that, based on the lay of the land at this project site, give us kind of your initial rendering, if you will, of what you see this school looking like. So it's a lot of back and forth between our department, stakeholders in the community, and the architect to come up with a design that works and that fits into the community well. So initially there was a design that went to a board meeting, went in the newspaper, I believe, and then we made some comments were made about the building envelope, the materials used on the exterior. We took those into consideration, and it's just progressed from there, and we're still looking at those details. When
we start a project, just in general terms, do we offer up, we're going to need, we definitely say to the architect, here are the 8 or 10 things we need, here are the 25 things we need, or do we let them go and then we say, we're not going to do that, we're not? How does that work?
Well, we certainly start off with a list of standards. For this particular project, we actually toured the architect through several of our more recent elementary schools. We went over the things that we really like, that we don't like. We showed them the finishes that we're looking at. We show, hey, we're going with, VCT flooring. We're not putting in gold flooring, or we're not going to go in and do something crazy. We try to get them on board with the look and the feel of Washington County. We then also hold meetings with the stakeholders of the community. So, for instance, the blue panels that we were just talking about. The architect heard someone in the community say, we really want to tie into the Boonesboro Indians. And they thought tying blue into the outside of the building would meet one of those comments from the stakeholder. And it was received well by some people. It was not received well by others. And that's really the thing when you come down to the aesthetics of an exterior building design. You'll have certain people that like it and certain people that don't. It's no different than our homes. One person's home, they may set it up exactly the way that they want. Someone else comes into it and goes, geez, I wouldn't go with the country look. I would go with a more modern look. So, what we try to do and what we direct the architect to is, for all of our general design features, how's it going to look in 40 years? We don't want it to look dated. Nothing's worse than walking into a school now and seeing like a light orange or a light pea green that's reminiscent of the 70s, because it dates it. You instantly know when that school was built. We try to stay as neutral, earth tones as much as possible. When you're in the elementary schools, we'll let the architect have a little bit of fun. We certainly when I say that,
we're going to need a full explanation of
so
that.
So when I say that, you want the space to be inviting to kids. You got to remember the people walking into these buildings are less than 4 feet tall, so everything looks huge to them.
Right.
It's like us walking into a large stadium or something like that. So you have to consider that scale. You got to make it fun. You got to have some bright colors, but you also you want to be smart in the placement. It doesn't need to be everywhere. You try to kind of localize it to certain spots. It's like anything. You want to have certain features, certain amenities, but then the rest of it, you kind of want it to meet a general standard.
Still, when we start out with an architect, we have a specific budget that we have to meet, and we have a limitation on the amount of square footage that they have to work with. Right. So, and these are solid numbers that we have to maintain with the architect. So when we first sit down with them, we develop what's called an educational specification. It's a program. We tell them how many classrooms we want. We want a media center, we want a gym, a cafeteria, all those things that you would put in a school. Maybe we need breakout spaces for smaller group learning. So all those things are worked with the architect and with the school administration and people at central office whose job is to know what we need to in the school to educate the students we have. And we put those spaces into the building, and the architect then develops that building with with that toolkit at his hand.
I just find it, and have in the time that I've, first of all, worked in the school system, but even before, in watching new buildings in Washington County Public Schools, there's nothing about them. For anybody who has walked into one of our new buildings over a number of years, to me anyway, to the casual observer, I'm sure, there's not one thing about them that you can say, boy, that's just like name the previous one or another building, whatever. They're all different. They're all unique in some way, which is, I'm assuming, unlike some other systems or jurisdictions where there's a kind of cookie cutter approach to it. Is it what's the strategy between the way we do it, offering up, I mean, in budget terms, responsibly, but offering up a different look and feel each time?
Well, so I guess what you're asking is we just recently completed Jonathan Hager Elementary School. Why couldn't we take the same design, plop it on the Sharpsburg Elementary School site, and then you see the same school?
Right. So, for instance, okay. I mean, in residential development terms, yeah, I think we'll be able to plop a Windsor in here or a whatever.
So we do that to a degree. We have a certain classroom layout. We have a certain facility layout, certain uses that we take those blocks, and they're very similar from school to school with how they're utilized. Right. But the problem is you start getting into certain site limitations. So, for instance, at Sharpsburg Elementary, there's a large grade change on the site by about a 20-foot drop. It's currently a wall. You couldn't take any of our existing schools, really, and place them on that site. You could, but you would spend several $1 million on earthwork to get it up to grade, and then actually the width of the site would become a limitation based on the layout of the current school. And obviously, we can't take everybody off the site and ship them somewhere else for a couple years to build the school. We need to maintain our services to the community that it serves right now. So the site's really the biggest thing, and unfortunately in Washington County, we're not flat, and we don't have nice square plots of land for every facility or jurisdiction that we serve. So that becomes where you start getting into, well, if you're going to take one design and you're going to stack, you're going to make it 3 levels instead of 2 levels. Well, now you've just added, a larger elevator. You've added larger staircases. You've basically created a completely different design, and it becomes a lot more complicated than just picking and placing. Now, if you were going to build several a year, or if you were going to build one school for multiple years, the big thing, the big plus to the prototype schools is that there's potential savings when you get the same contractor, right? Because it's no different than a residential development. If they're building the same house over and over, they start to see a savings. but we rarely get the same contractor because everything has to be bid to the lowest bidder, and that becomes problematic.
And again, there are site issues as we go across the whole county. So.
We also, we're just like our students, we're continuous learners. So education changes over time. And when you're building 3 schools over 9 years, the educational program can easily change over that period of time to where what you put in that first school you built 9 years ago is different than what you're putting or needing in a school that you're building 9 years later. And it's not only just the educational program, it could be things like mechanical systems. When I got here 12 years ago, we were putting boilers in schools. Then we put geothermal systems in. Now we're using a different variable refrigerant system that doesn't require a boiler or pumps like a geothermal. Those things all affect the layout and how you build a school. So you can't really just do a prototype if you want to continue to push the boundaries and make sure that you're getting the best bite for the buck. So
Is that when you say we've changed systems in the way you've described them? Is that something driven by educational facility, the educational facility industry? Is that something we stepped out on? Is that something that was under debate? We could have stayed with existing systems, but we decided to step up.
Right, the newer systems that we put in are more efficient.
Yeah, okay.
So on an operating side, they will allow us to operate the buildings at a lower cost. And they also have a lower first cost, believe it or not. So first cost is low and operations cost is low. It's a win-win.
Right. Well, all the taxpayers are sitting out there going, yes, we'll take that news. Brad, do you want to finish up on the Sharpsburg project? What kind of timeline is involved as we continue to play it out?
Sure. Right now we're planning to break ground sometime early fall of 2018. Construction will continue until August, September of 2020, and when students will return, and they'll come to the new school in 2020.
In 2020?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Is there anything that could happen? We're set to go. There are what leftover questions are there other than small details? There's
as far as determining the final design
there's
of the
nothing
building?
bombastic that's going to occur at this point.
No, with the overall, the layout of the building, the shape of the building, where it lays on the site, all that is set at this point. We're looking at things like some of the details of the mechanical systems Rob was mentioning, some of the areas that lie further out from the outdoor units of these of the mechanical system chosen. How are they served? How are they heated and cooled? As I mentioned earlier, we're still looking at some decisions with the materials that you would see if you drive up to the building, what the overall aesthetic of the building is. We're also looking at technology within the classroom and other areas like the media center. We're working with staff at the school and at the central office to determine, at this point in time, we're trying to make a decision on what the teaching wall in a classroom is going to look like. Is it a projector hanging off the wall? For instance, at Jonathan Hager, they have projectors hung off of the wall that project onto a whiteboard, a dry erase board, and there's also a touch screen component to that. At this school, we're looking at that as well as some smart board options, and those are the kinds of things. And all those require a little different electric and signal,
Sure.
Depending on what product you're putting in. Then the contractors will have to run slightly different wiring.
Well, when it comes to the actual use of the educational space, do you guys simply defer to the instructional staff as far as technology and other things, or do you guys have input into that? And what would that be, if so?
We do have some input. We definitely go to them to see. One of the things we're looking at right now is, so we have a rough cost on a smart board that we would put in if we were putting it in a school right now.
Right.
When the time comes to actually purchase that a couple years from now, roughly, then technology could be different already. So we have to keep that in mind. There's also line items for furnishings in the school, sure. Furniture in the cafeteria, furniture in the media center, all the loose tables and chairs, desks for the classrooms, that some of these technological components will come from that budget. So that's the operational side that we will have input on. We can look at past projects and say, the classroom technology at this school was blank percentage of the overall furniture and equipment budget for that school. So
And it's never perfect. The wish list of things that everybody would like to have in a school always far exceeds the budget we have. So we have to work with people and figure out and prioritize what are the most important things that are going to help the kids the most, and work from there.
Yeah, the best we can do, Will, is we try to make sure we're always looking at it from the eye of how can we update this in the future too. We certainly, we're looking at technology for 3 years from now. What are we going to need 10 years from now, and what are some of those decisions that may help or hurt us at that point? So that's one of the other sides we look from.
It's interesting. That's a little surprising to me, because you guys then have to follow the instructional technology updates, upgrades, trends, and all of that. I mean, it's not just about the physical building; it's about what goes in it too. Knowing and understanding what the needs are going to be, both today and, like you said, down the line, for the instructional staff, and how effectively they can use that technology. So, I mean, you guys, it's way more full service then, and not to patronize you, but I mean, that's more than I think folks understand about what you guys do, and how you get a building or plans for a building ready to go. That's a lot.
There's a lot of equipment, and luckily we have a lot of very smart individuals at the board that we work with not just technology, but our food services equipment, our security, or even things like the gym. We're constantly looking at new equipment. We're looking at a rock climbing wall for the Sharpsburg Elementary. Now, it's not a huge wall. It's very low to the ground, but this is going to be our first attempt at putting something like that in, where before we used ropes or ladders, which you probably remember, some of our other schools. That was an age joke. Yes,
back in the Tarzan days.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, we're constantly looking at new equipment for the entire facility. So, yeah, we look at all the systems.
If you're just joining us, the Columbia Bank is sponsoring today's Lunchtime Live. Rob Rollins is here as Director of Facilities Planning and Development for Washington County Public Schools. Also from the office, Chad Criswell, Senior Project Manager and Planning Supervisor, and Brad Otto, Project Manager. Chad, we didn't want to get away without, you do a lot of work with enrollment, which is, you don't just like pick it up, set it down. I mean, that's a constant for you.
It is, yeah. It's always changing. It changes throughout the year. The numbers that we report on in September are official numbers, but the reality of it is our enrollment fluctuates every day as people move in and out of the county, in and out of various attendance zones. It's ever changing. We have a few points of the year that we say, okay, this is where we're going to take our cutoff, and we're going to take a test here and see where we're at. But it's a constantly evolving situation.
How is that information used on the day-to-day, on the month-by-month? Who and why do they come to you for that information and those updates?
Well, obviously they're used for future staffing concerns. Obviously, if you're going to have, it's pretty easy. If you typically have a class size of 60 students at a facility and you've got a first grade class of 100 students, you're going to know that you're going to need 2 extra classes every year for that group of that grade level as they move through the school. So that becomes a constant concern. And also, it factors in a little bit more than that. When we see new developments come across from the county or the city, if we know a school is at or near capacity, we know that development might add additional enrollment pressure to that facility. So that's important to know. It's really endless as far as how that information we used, besides the fact that the state does require it. It's something that we provide every year to the state. We're required to provide enrollment projections. There's a lot of factors that go in to projecting enrollment, as well as determining why the current enrollment levels are the way they are.
Welcome back, everybody.
What's today's
Phil Miller
snapshot
here.
Or these
6
days?
minutes after
What's
2
your
o'clock,
enrollment
we are at
overview
69 degrees.
Right now
we've made it up to 71
looks like
degrees
we should stay
in
steady
the
here
last
for the
half
next
hour.
couple years,
We
depending if
backed
we
off,
see any mass
back
or
down
future
to
enrollment.
69 degrees.
We're going to see a little bit of growth in the middle and high school grades for a few years.
Cloudy skies.
One of the
They're
things that
calling
we're experiencing in the county
for
is a
cloudy
reduced number
skies
of
with
births.
showers possible,
So,
but mainly after 5 p.m.
In the past, where we've
Temperatures
seen
today
the
gonna
annual
hang
births
out
of about
right where they
1,800
are.
kids
For
a year.
tonight,
The past
cloudy
couple
skies
years,
with
we've
a
been down in the
90%
1,700
chance
region.
of showers.
And then
lows
there's what they
overnight
call a
in the
succession ratio.
mid-50s.
So
Tomorrow
obviously
is
the
a
number of
cloudy
births 4
day
years
with
ago show up
showers,
as,
mainly
students
before
for us,
2 p.m. Watch out for the breezy
we trend that
conditions
as far
out
as
of
how
the
many actually show
northwest,
up
10 to
compared to how many were
15,
born 4 years ago.
gusting up to
And,
30
that
miles
value
per
will
hour in
fluctuate
the
between
afternoon.
0.9 and
Friday
1.8.
Tonight, partly cloudy, a slight chance of showers before 8 p.m. It'll still be breezy out of the northwest, gusting up to 25 miles per hour, and temperatures falling overnight into the mid-20s. The weekend, partly sunny to begin
that's why Chad
Saturday,
updates those enrollment
but then
projections
snow
every year.
becomes
They have
likely after
impact
2
on
p.m.
so
in
many
the
parts of the school
afternoon.
system.
Temperatures near 37
funding
degrees.
is based on a per student basis.
Saturday
so
night,
projections
snow,
would let
mainly
you know
before
where your
2
budget might
a.m.
be heading in future
Lows
years.
overnight around 29
which could
degrees.
affect staffing decisions. It also
Sunday, a
affects our
chance of
facility
snow
planning.
before 8
in the last
a.m. in
decade,
the morning.
there was a lot of residential
then
growth
just a mostly
in
sunny
Washington
day
County.
with temperatures
And
getting
so
up
then there was
to
a population
47
growth
degrees.
that went with that.
Sunday
And
night, partly
the
cloudy,
system
a
gained
chance of
2,000
rain and snow
students
after
over
8 p.m.
eight-year
and
period.
temperatures
And
overnight
so we ended up
around
having to build new
32
schools like
degrees.
Ruth Hammond Row and
President's
Rockland Woods.
Day,
They had to
cloudy,
be
a
put on the
chance of
books.
rain
If we
and
saw
snow
something
showers
right now
early.
where we thought there was going to
Then
be a spike in
rain
enrollment, we would
showers,
start having
likely
to plan
temperatures near
right
50
now,
degrees.
the need for
and
more
Tuesday,
capacity, more
mostly
schools.
cloudy,
And if
a
we think it's going
chance
to be
of
flat, then
showers,
we look at
temperatures in the
renovations like Sharpsburg, where we take a school
so
that is
after a little
near the bottom of
fluke
our
of
facility
snow
assessment
comes this weekend,
grade.
we'll be back in the
a school that hasn't been
mid-60s next
updated
week.
in a long time.
9
and
minutes
was
after
originally
2
built in
o'clock,
1930,
69
in the
degrees
1930s.
at Keeper's Weather
1936, thank you.
Station. Make it
And
73
let's build a new school
degrees
and
at
replace
Discovery
that.
Station.
Does the extra
in
enthusiasm
City
on
Center,
something
Hagerstown,
like
have
and
one
the funding to
scattered
go with
shower
it for like
just
adding
to the
pre-K kids?
southwest
Is
of
that
Washington
a serious
County.
challenge, or
So
that's
heads
just
up,
yet
Berkeley
another
County,
element to
Jefferson
factor in?
County, you might see a small sprinkle over
I mean,
the
we have to
next
find-
hour.
It's both.
Let's
We
get
have to
back
find a
the
place to put them.
music
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
Got the
So that could lead
Spitfire
to
band with
facility
the Back Bay
improvements,
Shuffle.
or we could temporarily look at portable classrooms. There's any number of ways, and often schools have rooms that are repurposed. With the one-to-one technology initiative, the use of a computer lab might not be needed anymore at a school. So that room could be converted to a classroom to make space for pre-K or some other program. So yeah, we have to look at all the resources we have and then make smart decisions about where's the best to spend money in order to support those programs.
It's a lot of information. Good show. Appreciate it. Today's show has been sponsored by the Columbia Bank. Rob Rollins, Director of Facilities Planning and Development for Washington County Public Schools. Chad Criswell is Senior Project Manager and Planning Supervisor. And Brad Otto, Project Manager in the Department of Facilities Planning and Development. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate you coming out and doing the show. This is Will Kaufman. We're here the third Thursday each month, a partnership between Washington County Public Schools and WJEJ.